is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
What's up, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. It is January 2nd. We hope you all are having a great second day of the year, and who else would I rather talk to than having our first guest on Setting the Pace here in 2026. It is my man, Casey Johnson, a.k.a. Casey on the drums, season ticket holder, the big dog, Casey. Casey, how's it going?
Oh, we're surviving out here. I'm a retail worker still in a very much alive holiday season. So we're doing everything that we can to make it. And I don't know. I feel like I've barely had time to sit down lately, but when I have been sitting down, I've made it a point to watch my favorite team lose a lot. So
and then come on and podcast about them late at night.
Yes.
So,
well, to be fair, I think this is the earliest you and I have ever recorded.
You're probably right. This is kind of early. We are recording this around 9 o'clock on January 1st, so a little bit early. But I will say, Casey is rocking the Noblesville Boom shirt. I still have not made it down to the arena to watch a Noblesville Boom game, but they did make a blockbuster trade.
Yes.
They traded a first-round pick in 2026 and I believe a future 2027 pick of some sort for Cody Martin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was a returning player, right? A first and a second.
Okay. Cody Martin. Okay. Didn't do much with the Pacers, but I think he'll be a good G League player for him, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things, like, there are certainly those players who I saw a TikTok not too long ago of a guy saying he had his like welcome to the G League moment when I forget what player it was that came down from upstairs and said, like, he was like, man, I was, wanting to test myself against this guy, and he dropped the easiest 28, 12, and 7 that he's ever had in his life. And it's one of those things that there are levels to this. I mean, Mac McClung, who did not work out for the Pacers, is ripping people to shreds currently in the G League. So like it's just one of those things that like I said, there's levels to this, and I think Cody's going to do incredibly well at that level. And by the way, I will just say for you and for anybody who hasn't been to a Boom game, I've been to a couple now. What a very pleasant experience. I love going because for one, there's the team that I'm obviously rooting for, but also like I'm not a huge like fan. Like I don't watch all of the games or anything by any stretch of the imagination. So it's nice to, cheer and boo and feel like there's not too much weight. The arena is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm actually pretty good friends with one of the in-arena hosts, so I always have to make sure to say hi and talk to my friend Felicia. But it's a tremendous experience. I recommend it for everybody, especially for like a cheap night out. Like row 2 is like $35 a ticket. So like it's a really affordable night, and it's always fun. Like Gabe McLaughlin, for instance, he came out for we went last week, and he came out for warm-ups, and before he even goes for warm-ups, he goes over to the side and starts signing stuff for kids and doing stuff like that. So it's very much like if people out there like going to go see like the Indianapolis Indians, it very much is the same thing, but for basketball. I really like it.
Well, that's great to hear. And I know the Indianapolis Indians have a great a great stadium, and it's always a pleasant experience when you go out there. The baseball on the field might not be the greatest at times, but I will say watching Kyle Guy drop 39 points probably had to be exciting for a lot of fans. So
yeah, he's so much fun to watch, really, because he's got an odd gait to him, and he just looks like a guy who is going to quietly rip a team to shreds, and he usually does.
Yeah, I was actually talking to the general manager of the Boom, Chris Taylor, and I said, I know Kyle Guy is kind of your Indiana connection here for people to come out and see him, but if you guys sign Lance for a contract, I think that arena would be filled. And he said, a couple of years ago, that was a potential person we might have brought back, but not on the table right now. So just thought that was interesting, but you never know who might show up for the Boom. I mean, you see a trade for Cody Martin, and wow. Is it Cody Martin, right? It's not Caleb Martin, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Cody.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So anyway, we're here to talk about something totally different than what we've been talking about for the first handful of minutes here.
What else is new with the two of us, my friend?
That is very true. You don't want to get us two together because we will talk about everything except what we're supposed to be talking about. But I thought it would be great to have Casey come on and, looking at 2026, giving us a wish list for the 2026 upcoming year for the Indiana Pacers. Now, me and Facci just did a 2025 Christmas wish list, so I'm not going to actually give anything unless I feel like Casey maybe left something off the table here. But I told Casey to come up with 5 things that he wants for the Indiana Pacers 2026 calendar year. So, Casey, let's work our way up to number 1. What do you have at number 5 on your wish list?
Absolutely. So, first things first, and I feel like this is the layup of all layups, but the thing that you have to say at the beginning of any list like this in the 2025-2026 season, and especially considering the fact that we're doing the year of 2026, so it's got to be, into the first part of next season too. Health, like it just that has to be at the, and it's so, in so many ways, you're not in control over it. In so many ways, there's nothing that you can do about it. But I think everybody would be lying if they said it's not the first thing that they think of. Only a couple of days ago did the Pacers have Neesmith, Nembhard, Siakam, and Matherin and McConnell all for the first time. That is crazy entering the new year. And it really just goes to show how odd this season has been from that standpoint. But also, I know we're talking ad nauseum about that, but health entering next year, we're looking at next year as being a year to really compete, especially depending on what happens the rest of the year, what kind of lottery luck we get, etc. And it's one of those things where, when we have Tyrese come back, like, he needs to be healthy. We need to see Obi come back healthy, which I saw Obi down on the court doing some stuff before the game on New Year's Eve, which was super cool just to, see him out there and at least know that he's progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and maybe this is just what I've been through as an Indiana sports fan in the last 12 months. I mean, the last 20 years. But I mean, at this point, I'm thinking if we can just wrap Mendoza in bubble wrap until it's time to go out on the field and potentially sneak him into some bubble wrap while he's on the field, because I'm only half joking about this. Considering our track record, I'm terrified for the young man right now. But, at this point, I think figuring out a way to take care of everybody, to take care of everybody's bodies, and actually have a healthy team entering next season via getting healthy this season has to be paramount in everybody's mind.
No, I mean, first of all, shout out to the Indiana Hoosiers for the butt whooping they put on the Alabama Crimson Tide.
What a game today. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely dominated them. And the only thing I wish they would have been playing Notre Dame instead, so I could quit hearing those Notre Dame crying Irish fans talking about how they deserve to be in the playoff because they had such a tough schedule. Get out of here. You're not the best team in Indiana this year in college football. It's in Bloomington. But anyway, I digress. I'll get off my soapbox. Talking about this health, you're right, though. I mean, a fully healthy Tyrese Halliburton and no setbacks, like, that is exactly what you want. And we'll see how long it takes him to kind of get back into rhythm. But, the whole identity starts there with this Pacers team. We've seen it this year. 6-28 as we're currently speaking. This Pacers team has no identity. And they're trying to figure things out, but they're just constantly going through all these injuries and trying to get a roster out there that, looks like some semblance of itself last year. And we're slowly starting to see that, but still, until you get Toppin back, you're really struggling because you don't have a great backup to Pascal at the 4, nor do you have any answers at the 5 moving forward. So I agree, but it was great to see Neesmith healthy and playing without a minutes restriction in the last game. Shepard coming back, he looked pretty solid. You're just going to maybe see guys get in more roles that they feel more comfortable in versus being asked to do what they're doing. But you're right. 2026, let's hope that everybody goes into the actual regular season, gets through preseason fully healthy, no extreme dings or bruises, things like that. So I'm excited to see what they can do fully healthy. But I am curious what you have next on your wish list.
Number two, and you touched on this. Briefly when you were speaking. It has to be high up on the wish list to have a starting five. You just have to have a starting center. I think the ironic part is that there are 4 centers on the team right now who could all make you could make good arguments about all 4 of them right now that they're a serviceable backup if you need one. I the flashes that we've seen out of Jay when he has played well, which the shot, isn't always going in. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time it's not going in, but the crazy block rate and the fact that he is a microwave scorer type, where I was talking to somebody about this the other day. He's the type of, if he's your backup, probably 4 wins on your schedule are going to be games where Jay Huff caught a heater and he won you the game. I don't know that he necessarily loses you any games as a backup, but he can win some of them. Obviously, Isaiah Jackson is serviceable. Tony Bradley goes out there and he at least does the right things. And I have liked the Micah Potter experience so far. He's got good energy. One thing that I've really liked about him is it feels like he never stands still. Like when he's out on the court, if you just watch him, his off-ball movement is great. He's trying stuff. He's always setting screens. He is really just crisp in his movements and crisp in trying to always make something happen, which is something that this year I think has been missing from this team. So you've got those 4 guys, but I think it's becoming increasingly clear that you need a definitive starter. And whether that comes somehow they, find the guy who's going to be that guy in the draft, or whether they make a trade, which seems inevitable at this point, it's absolutely something that has to be near the top of everybody's wish list. The only issue that I really run into is, I don't know about you, but I'm somewhat unfamiliar with all of the centers who are available around the league on the various teams. And so I've just been really searching for some sort of a resource by a trusted voice that can tell me who's out there and why they might make sense for the Pacers.
Well, I appreciate you setting me up for a great plug here, because we're doing a mini podcast series called Center of Attention, where we're going to be recording every single day, talking about every team in the league and looking at their center and their center depth, and could the Pacers actually make a move or not. And so as we hear the rumors about these players that could become available as we're recording about them, we will touch on that. I will just put that out there. Now, in terms of centers that we've heard that are available, I would say Daniel Gafford is one that comes to mind that we've heard the Pacers have been connected to. We've also heard the Kings are potentially willing to shop Domantas Sabonis. Other than that, I really haven't heard too much of anything concrete, other than some speculation. Could Zubac be on the move? Could a Nick Claxton become available? Those type of players. So we'll have to kind of just keep that with our eyes open, but could not agree with you more. And honestly, the Micah Potter experience, like you said, it's not been bad. It's actually been a little bit refreshing, gives you a little bit something different than a James Wiseman. And if you're talking about 3-point shooting, right, I personally think his shot looks better than Jay Huff's. And so
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Huff, it's kind of interesting. We're just going off the last game we just saw against Orlando, but Jay Huff only played 10 minutes, was a -16, got subbed out of the starting lineup to start the second half for Micah Potter. So I'm going to monitor that and see if that happens tonight against the Spurs. I would be a little bit shocked if it does, but I don't know. Jay Huff, to me, has not been playing well. And at one point earlier in the season, he was a third-string center behind Tony Bradley and Isaiah Jackson, and wasn't really playing in some games until it was garbage time when you're down by 25 points. So I would just say this. You talked about all 4 of these guys being, capable backups, and not thinking Jay Huff could really hurt you as a backup. I don't know. I think there's some games he might hurt you as a backup, but really, if the Pacers decided to overhaul the entire center depth that they have from this group right now, and they went out and traded for a center and then signed a different center as that backup and then found another third-string center different, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I think I've seen enough of this group to feel like if I don't ever see them on the court again, I'm not going to lose any sleep.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And to be clear, I do think that Jay Huff hurts you from time to time as a backup. I just don't think that you will be able to point to very many losses and say, well, Jay Huff in his 15 minutes did absolutely nothing productive. He sort of lost us that game. Whereas, I mean, most players on the team, you can point to at least one game. It's like, well, he sold that one. But yeah, I definitely agree. There's a lot of questions here, and there's not a ton of answers. And I would encourage everybody who's listening to remember as well, like, we have heard all of these things, and the rumors are rumors, and you never know where they're coming from and all of that. But if we remember, a few years ago, it was like, Pacers are going after De'Aaron Fox. Man, they really want De'Aaron Fox. And then all of a sudden, we got a notification on our phones that said, what?
Yep.
They got Tyrese Halliburton? We thought that they were getting De'Aaron Fox. So it's one of those things where just as likely as the Pacers making the Pascal Siakam example of the deal, where Pascal Siakam and the Pacers were linked forever, and then it happened. Obi Toppin and the Pacers were linked forever, mostly by Facci, and it happened. And Tyrese was completely out of left field, as was, well, hey, we picked up this kid, Aaron Nesmith, so it's one of those things. Remember, it is just as likely to be the person you never thought that it would be, as opposed to the person that you thought it would be in the first place. So that's why it's important to be doing exactly what you're doing and doing your homework on all of these centers, because the next thing you know, you could end up with the one guy that you never thought about that actually makes all the sense in the world for this team.
Well, if you look at the summer, right, Jay Huff is kind of that guy, kind of the out of nowhere guy that people were not expecting at all. And when you see the Pacers lose Miles Turner, then all of a sudden the Pacers have traded for Jay Huff from Memphis for a starting center. You're like, who is this Jay Huff guy? And then you watch a couple highlight films and you're like, oh man, this guy can shoot the ball, backwards dunks, block shots. Okay, I see the vision here, but it is not a replica of who you lost in free agency to the Bucks. But it is quite a bit cheaper than paying $28 million a year when you're looking at a minimum contract. Now, maybe we're asking too much of Jay Huff, right? I've said that several times on this podcast. Expectations were probably a little too high just because everyone kind of thought he could be a Turner light, and clearly he's just a Jay Huff. So it's not fair to put him in that category, but I'm excited to see what they do. I think that they're going to have something up their sleeve. I think every team in the league knows that they desperately need a center, so it's going to be hard to make a trade potentially because of how teams like to operate and ask for more when they know a team's in a precarious position. But I am excited to hear the next thing on your wish list.
So number 3, and I have phrased this in a very specific way, because I think it's important that we set our expectations where they should be, as opposed to where we want them to be. The way that I'm phrasing this is lottery luck. Now, lottery luck could look like a whole lot of different things at this point. It's important to note, if you end up as the team who is the worst team in the league, aka the number 1 seed on Tankathon, 48% of the time you're going to end up at the number 5 pick. Right? It is just as likely for you to land in the combined top 4 as it is at number 5. For those of you who have been clicking on Tankathon and clicking sim and clicking sim and clicking sim, you're going to notice it's at number 5 a heck of a lot. Also, we have to remember, and I think that people are losing track of this so much, from the top down, this team and this organization has a policy of not bottoming out. Now, if you can't win, you accept it and you move on. And I think that there have been several times this season where you can kind of see, okay, we pulled the plug when maybe there was a chance or whatever. But that's not what I'm talking about. The players want to win. The coaches want to win. Rick Carlisle has been chasing win number 1,000 for like 8 weeks or something like that now.
10 straight games.
And so this is one of those situations where you have to remember, just because Boozer, just because Peterson, just because DeBonce are on the board, does not mean that the Pacers are going to give up. It's not in their DNA. It's a promise that the Simon family made to the entire state of Indiana when they took over the team, is that they weren't going to tank. So when this team is healthy, yeah, they're going to be trying to win, and they're going to do what they can. With that being said, there's 48 games left in the season. And let's postulate and let's say that this team, when healthy, assuming they get healthy, reaches its zenith of what we thought they could be, which most people agreed, let's say composite is around a 500 team. If they win half of their last 48 games, that's 24, and that puts them at a 30-win season as it stands right now. At the 30-win season, that would have them last year tied with the Toronto Raptors, depending on tiebreakers, for the 7th best lottery odds. But that's where we're at. So when you look at what lottery luck means, if you're in the top 4, it means not falling too far. If you are at number 7, it means, please, dear God, don't let 4 teams who aren't in the top 4 all jump into the top 4 and put me down at 11. Of course, it means jumping up. But I think right now, we all have to see how the rest of this season goes and not start to, in a very biblical way, begin to covet our neighbor's wife in terms of having this lottery pick, this number 1 pick that we're all romanticizing, admit it, but it might not be ours, and it might not be ours to claim. So really, on my wish list is, whatever happens, I just hope that the ping pong balls make it so that the Pacers have the most favorable position that they realistically can, considering wherever they end up.
Okay, here's what I will say. First of all, I don't want to hear any realism right now on the podcast because I'm living in fantasy. And I don't want to think about falling to the 7th seed in terms of like the inverse standings and not getting into the top 5. Okay, you're already the worst team in the league. So you got to be smart about this. You said there's 48 games. Let's just remember what they did a couple of years ago when they got Benedict Mathurin. They lost 10 games in a row to end the season. So even if we just take off the 10 games that they lose at the end of the season, just say 38 games remaining, they go 19-19. They have 25 wins at that point, right? Can you just lose the last 10 instead of having to make me worry about you going 500? 25 and whatever that is, 50, whatever, 57, 25 and 57. Something similar to what they did with the Mathurin draft, right? I understand the odds will put you at the 5 seed more than they'll put you at the 1 seed. As you were talking, I did 5 spins on Tankathon. The very first spin I did, Pacers stayed at number 1. The second spin I did, they fell to 3. The next 3 that I did, they fell to 5. Okay? So, like you said, the odds are in the favor of falling to 5, but I would much rather fall to 5 than fall from 7 to 11. But understand your sentiment. The Pacers do not usually bottom out, especially this early into the season. And I do think that losing a ton of games and not establishing good habits could be problematic for the future of this team. So there's a lot of people that are hit or miss on how they feel about how the team should approach this whole entire season, especially with 48 games left, which is over half the year. I just think they have to realize, and I think they will realize, that maybe Siakam doesn't play the rest of the 48 games. Maybe Mathurin and Nembhard don't play the final 48 games, or Nesmith. Maybe they play the final 38 or 40. But I think you have to look at the players you want to develop and that kind of thing moving into the next year, and who can give you what at what position. I think that's more important than winning meaningless games when you know you're not going to make the playoffs. So it's a weird situation. The lottery odds being flattened have helped a lot of, a lot of teams from completely bottoming out. But I also think that the Pacers are in a weird position where they're not usually ever here. And it would be a mistake for them to finish 500 over the last 48 games. In my opinion, what's the point of getting to 30 wins if it's not going to do you any good? Just to worsen your draft position? I mean, are you really that concerned about the morale of the team if you don't try to get to that threshold of playing a 500 basketball for the final 48 games? I don't think so, but I agree with you, though. Like, let the lottery odds be in their favor. That's my wish list. And please pray to God they at least stay in the top 4, because I think the top 4 in this draft are above and beyond 5 through where the next tier is. So, I mean, and I'm throwing Caleb Wilson into this group. I think he is in a tier by himself at 4. But the top 3, Peterson, Boozer, and DeBonsa, those are your top 3 without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And Wilson, number 4. I mean, if you can get one of those, I think they could change the trajectory of this team in the future. But if you fall to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, now it's really just a crapshoot. Like more than falling in top 4.
Yeah, it totally is. And you touched on something that I think that it's important that even the most optimistic Tankathon fan recognize, which is there are a lot of factors at play, many of them incredibly human factors that lead to whatever is going to happen by the end of the year. I mean, after the last game, we're already, and who knows how much weight it has, a lot of stuff just thrown around, but we haven't really heard very many, as Rick would say, the petty nonsense. We haven't heard that from this team the last couple of years. You can see that. I mean, I'm a half season ticket holder, right? I have been there for so many of the games watching Pascal creating memes with his sadness at the end of the bench. Something very real within this team could break, and something very real within this group of men, this group of humans could break. And that's one thing that I almost put in this top 5 is one of my big wishes is for the basketball not to ruin the men.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean, how many of these losses you look at, and how many of them are you're one Tyrese Halliburton away from winning this game? Those are the one, like the one yesterday against the Magic. I walked away from that one with my head held high because I'm like, in a world where Tyrese Halliburton is on the court, I believe that the Pacers would have won this game. The blowouts are the blowouts, and they are what they are, and morale is bad, and the basketball is bad, and that's whatever. But there are legitimate benefits next year for winning some of these games now. At the very least, winning enough of them to keep the chemistry of the team alive, keep these very alpha individuals as a team and not being at each other's throats. There's a lot to be said for that. And so not if, but when the franchise, I believe, moves in that direction of night after night trying to beat the guy that's in front of us, because none of the guys on the bench want to lose, and none of the guys who are coaching the guys on the bench really want to lose, even if it's the best thought. At a certain point, you just have to realize that one way or another, it will end up being what it will be. I don't think that this team is going to go 500 the rest of the way. That was a optimistic, pessimistic, whichever way you put it. I don't think they're going to go 500 the rest of the way.
Sigh of relief when you said that. Sigh of relief.
But I think it's important for everybody. I look at life as a golf course where you get to set your own par. And I always set my par at like 10, right? Because like that way, if the ball even goes in the hole, I have won. And so
okay, I like the analogy.
When I'm looking at the way that the rest of this team this year could go, I am bracing myself for a team that could improve to be mediocre for the rest of the year, and the benefits and the impacts at the end of the day that has on what we end up seeing in the lottery. So that's my biggest thing for people, is just like brace yourself for every eventuality. That way you don't end up really, really unhappy in June.
Yeah. I mean, being unhappy in June is an all too familiar feeling, especially a more recent one. Jesus. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Where are we at on your list? Are we number 3, number 4?
4. Here comes number 4. So number 4 is something that I have phrased it the Pacers way.
Okay.
And that is just that on a ridiculous number of levels, this team does not represent the very same humans which they are. It is the difference in everything from last year to this year is just insane. And I'll kind of get into, ironically, with my number 5, or rather my number 1. I'll get into this a little bit more, but there's so many factors for what's happening right now. And as a result, they can only control what they control. The thing that's concerning to me is the controllables are also not looking great in a lot of situations. It is not the Pacers' way to have this little off-ball movement. I realized that the off-ball movement levels were bad, but I didn't realize until, like we were talking about earlier, until Micah Potter showed up and he's running around, he's trying to get into position, he's setting screens, he's trying to improv, he's not following some scheduled set of actions. Micah Potter is playing Pacers basketball more than the Pacers are playing Pacers basketball right now. The ball movement, it has been so much of your turn, my turn.
Yep.
It's been so much of, I used the phrase with my buddy Jeremiah the other day. It's ISO basketball masquerading as Pacers basketball. 'Cause it's like you run 1 to 2 actions, but the 1 to 2 actions don't necessarily get you into a shot. It gets you into an ISO situation for Nembhard or for Mather, and they're fine ISO players, but how many times has an offensive rhythm started, and then Andrew Nembhard has decided for a couple of plays to stop being a point guard and just to take ISO, and then it, ruins the momentum. Or the same can be said about Matherin, or the same can be said about people just doing things that are out of character for the way that they've played the last couple of years and out of character for the way that the team wants to play. And I know that Tyrese has a big impact on that, and I know that to a certain extent that is going to be back next year, but you said it perfectly when you said building bad habits. You cannot make deposits that you're going to withdraw next year that are bad ones at this point. And so my penultimate wish on my wish list is just for the way that the Pacers go about things to return at some point in 2026.
So what you're telling me is no more petty nonsense.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and for a couple things. Number one, telling your friend that this is the Pacers masquerading as Pacers basketball, like they're not even masquerading. It is clear as day. They are not trying to act like they are any sort of semblance of what they were last year. I mean, this is a team that it's like, okay, you might see it once every 10 plays where they run an action like that, but it's usually when TJ's in the game or when Shepard is back healthy or Neesmith's back healthy and they're running fast and filling the lanes and things like that. But the ball does get sticky quite a bit without Halliburton on the court. And you're seeing a lot of teams shade whenever Pascal touches the ball, making it difficult for him to get shots off that are clean. Like, I mean, this guy shot 10 free throws against the Magic, only made 5 of them. I mean, if he makes all of his free throws, they win the game. So it's like he's just exhausted because everything he does, like everybody's worried about him. And they're not overly concerned about Nembhard shooting from 3. I wouldn't be either. The guy's not shooting the ball great. Jay Huff isn't shooting the ball great. Whoever else has been out there for the Pacers besides Matherin really hasn't been shooting the ball great. And I think Matherin's numbers have even come down from where they were about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So yeah, it's just a rough spot to be in right now. But you're right. Like, this is a team that just desperately needs to find their identity. And that's why I said Halliburton is the identity, but you can still figure things out without him out there. And I want to hit on one point you're talking about here too, like Micah Potter playing Pacers basketball the right way. Jay Huff is somebody that I've been touching on a little bit, and I'm not trying to pick on Jay Huff or anything like that, but this is a guy that is not used to being in winning situations. This is a guy that is not used to being a part of a winning team when he is a focal point of the rotation. I think he was actually on the Lakers championship team that won in the bubble. I don't know if he was on a two-way deal or not, but clearly was not in the rotation, was not a factor whatsoever. So just got to be along for the ride. But now Jay Huff is a very nonchalant type of personality, like a very cool guy, but also just a guy that just always seems to be like go with the flow. And I mentioned this last episode, so I don't want to just keep rehammering this, but I'll say this one more time. That's it. Were you at the game against the Magic?
I was.
Okay. So you hear Jay Huff greet the crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can't even make it through without making a joke with Desmond Bain, his former teammate. He's like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying hi to you too. Like, it's just who he is. He's a jokey kind of guy. They're getting beat by the Wizards by 19 points. He's cutting it up on the bench, laughing with Andrew Nembhard about something. He comes to the podium after the game, and he played a good game in that game. Talks about how great Marvin Bagley was. It's like, for what you want from this Pacers team and what you're standing for, like, I'm not saying that Rick was calling out Jay Huff in terms of like the petty stuff, right? I just petty nonsense. I just really think for Jay Huff, like, he's not used to what it takes to win and being a part of that. And that is where you have to establish these habits of playing the Pacers way and maybe benching him and maybe pulling him out of the lineup because he's probably comfortable now starting a lot, making it uncomfortable for him. Make him realize, like, nothing is guaranteed, man. Like, you have not been good enough to prove that you actually belong as a starting five, let alone even the backup five. When Micah Potter's out playing you and he's on a non-guaranteed deal, when Tony Bradley's getting starts over you at time, and entering the season, they wanted Isaiah Jackson over you at the five, starting out, you're not guaranteed anything. And I think that making it uncomfortable for him would be good. And probably another couple of players that can feel that same pressure of realizing it's the Pacers way or you're going to be on the bench. Ben Mathurin hasn't really had to face that yet this year, but with Shepard back now and Nesmith back, be on the lookout for that if he gets caught one more time with, letting someone go behind him on a backdoor cut where Carlisle has to shoot him out.
Did you see how intense Rick was after calling that one timeout yesterday? That was, I could hear him and I was near the top.
Yeah.
That was.
Well, that was like the fourth one in the game.
Yeah.
Rick was done. Like, and you could tell after the game in the post-game press conference, Rick was done. And so it's like, if you're not going to play the way we need you to play, you're not going to be on the court, even if you are our best guard scorer. So I think that you're going to have to start making things uncomfortable. If you're Rick, just because you want to make sure that you establish what is important. And I thought Jarris Walker actually played a pretty solid game against the Magic. I know some people probably have not loved the Jarris Walker experience, but he's also somebody that could be benched if not playing the Pacers way. Johnny Furphy kind of got benched in the game. Even though I don't think Furphy did anything incredibly wrong, it's just one of those things. So, all right, let's get to your number 5 here. I've been rambling for a little bit.
The only thing that I will say before I go to my final one, Micah Potter got a fan in life for me yesterday because of one specific thing that he did that wasn't a basketball thing necessarily. Can you guess what it was?
Have no idea. Was it when he tried to like cheer the crowd, like get the crowd to cheer for the team?
That was lovely to me. And I didn't get a chance to listen to the episode yesterday, so I don't know if you've already mentioned it, but he's checking out of the game and the crowd is giving him an ovation because I think that the thing about everybody says about the Indiana crowd is that it's a smart basketball crowd. Like they don't just know to cheer, they know when to, and they know what the important moments in the game are, what, all of that is. And so I think a lot of people have have had this moment in a similar way that I have, where he is very refreshing. And so he's getting this applause as he comes out of the game, and and again, I could hear him all the way up in the balcony goes, "Let's go!" And got something out of the crowd. I was like, "Oh, I've been missing that actually." Yeah. I think. So yeah, he won me over, if for no other reason than that yesterday. But
showed some heart, showed some life.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Showed that he wants to be here and wants to win, which again kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's a fine line to keep them losing, but keep them wanting to win. You know?
Yeah.
So it's one of those, we have to, I guess, quote unquote, put up with some wins if we want those kind of moments to keep happening. But more than anything, and this is my last one here. It's just one easy word, but it everything folds into it so much. It's just answers.
Okay.
I just want answers. And the thing is, right? You and I was on after Fan Jam, and we were talking about it, kind of doing a light meandering season preview, as we have a tendency to meander. And one thing that we were talking about is, man, and the great thing about this year is you have a chance to get all of the answers that you couldn't get while you were contending. You can find out what you've got in X player. You can find out what you get in Y player. And then 2 weeks later, they're playing a game where they have 4 players in the rotation who played in the finals. I counted. They had 4 players who were in the finals one game.
Okay.
And Jarris would have been the 5th if he hadn't been injured in the finals. So it has been one of those things where every answer that we thought we would get was almost based on our own hubris in assuming that what we were going to see in any way looked like Pacers basketball. And also, we did not assume that they would have a historic level of injuries. We did not assume that a league high number of jerseys would be produced this year, right? But I feel like every question that we were trying to get answered this year so far has been replaced, not with an answer, but with 3 additional questions. Because now there are so many layers to what's happening and why certain things are happening. And one thing that I've learned in my life is that there is a spectrum between reasons and excuses. And excuses are not valid, and reasons are, and they're very, very rarely polar. It is everything that you can say as to why something happened is somewhere between a reason and an excuse. And you are at a point now where morale is at an all-time low. How much does that explain the on-court play as opposed to scheming? How much of it is on the coaches to get more out of them versus the players to put in more effort? How much of it is, and I think Jay Huff is a really, really good example where, and don't get me wrong, I don't think that this is the case, but I think it's incredibly clear that every single player who was out there on the court was elevated probably to 2 times what they normally play at by the mere presence of number 0.
Mhm.
And so when you look at even a guy like Jay Huff, how is Tyrese able to set up a guy like Jay Huff if Tyrese is out there on the court? And does he manage to get him 3 lobs a game? And is Jay averaging, 14 and 8? And we're saying, hey, I think we have our starting center, as opposed to wondering the extent to which he needs to be involved moving forward because Tyrese isn't there. That's not a known quantity. That's not something that we can figure out right now. We have got so many situations where how much of it is Tyrese, and because the team is playing so badly without Tyrese, to what extent does that call into question the abilities and traits of the other people on the floor? And I'm not talking necessarily about your Neesmiths, your Matherins, but as far as like the bench guys, as far as the rotation guys, what if some of these guys just actually aren't all that great at an NBA level and Tyrese was pulling a lot out of them? Which begs the question, how successful could Tyrese be with, because he's a basketball genius, whoever you get him? How many, he pulls all of this out of Jarris, he pulls all of this out of Shepherd, and I like these players, but how much of that could he do with 50 other players across the league just because he's that good at learning his players and pulling the best out of everybody? And so that's a whole thing. Does it call into question, are the guys on the team somehow a little bit more expendable because we think that Tyrese was doing more than we thought with less than we thought? Or is it everybody's just depressed and sad? Or is it this? Or is it that? Where's the scheme problems? Where's the chemistry problems? And all that I want is for some of the answers that I thought we were going to get this season not to be replaced with more questions.
Yeah.
That's all that I want, because right now there are like 8 reasons / excuses for everything that is going wrong. And to quote a scholar from MTV in years past, no human alive knows the answer to that question, Beavis.
Oh my God. A scholar. Okay. Butthead is a scholar. So anyway, if you guys didn't
Beavis
catch,
isn't.
no, he's not. But I will just to piggyback off that quickly. There's a lot of questions still to be answered.
Yeah.
And can we figure it out over the next 48 games? I think we might be able to get closer to some of these answers.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think there's going to be a lot of incompletions until you get Halliburton back, because it was a small sample size, but just look how different Obi Toppin looked without Tyrese Halliburton on the court. It was only 2.5 games, really, because he got hurt in like the third quarter of the Minnesota game. Not saying he couldn't have figured it out over time, because I think he would have adjusted and adapted to what this new Pacers style would be, but it was taking him some time to do it. I would say the only one that really has not been that, I guess he has been impacted by it, but it's not shown as much as Pascal, right?
Yeah.
I think Pascal can do Pascal things without Tyrese being out there, but still very difficult. And they're asking him to do a lot more and play a lot more minutes and have a bigger usage, load and things like that, where it's like you can see with Nembhard where he really does miss having Halliburton. I think with, having to guard the other team's best player plus be your point guard, it can lead to some shortness in your 3-point shot because you're exhausting so much energy on defense. Ben Mathurin, to me, I think he's always just going to be Ben Mathurin. I don't think it's really going to matter who's on the court with him or not. I think he misses the floor spacing at times without Halliburton out there because of his ability to drive. But other than that, I don't feel like defensively you're seeing anything different, because to me, when I watch him play defense nowadays, it looks very similar to what he's done the last couple of years. When I watch him play offense, it looks very similar. TJ McConnell, kind of the same thing, but everybody else, he's pretty much impacted a lot. I mean, look at Aaron Nesmith the first 20-some games of the season before he went down, or 15 games of the season before he went down with that injury in Phoenix where it was just awful. But like when you're asking him to be like the number 2, number 3 guy,
yeah,
way out of way out of position where he should be at.
I mean, besides that too, like when Nesmith was coming back from his injury, I'm sitting there like everybody else saying, well, I hope now he can score. And then Caitlin points out, I see a tweet where she's like, and remember, Aaron Nesmith, all of the games he played, they didn't have any point guards. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's another reason / excuse, that somewhere during the middle of all of that, and even the most brilliant basketball minds that we know that are covering this team are having a hard time separating fact from fiction in that regard. And for the players also, there is this giant cloud hanging over the season that none of it matters. And you can convince them it's important to go out there and compete. You can convince them or you can try to, that we still have a chance, but how easy were you to convince of anything at 24 years old?
Yeah.
Like, you can't convince these kids to go out there and try to make them think that this matters, because they know that this season doesn't matter. And that trickles all the way down. We just need the people who are paid a heck of a lot more than us to figure this out, and the people who are a heck of a lot smarter than us to figure it out, to figure out what is fact, what is fiction, and disseminate what this season actually means for these young men.
And this, to me, and I'm not blaming Rick or anybody like that, but this is where coaching could maybe challenge some of these guys a little bit, because you said 24-year-olds. Well, honestly, some of these guys are younger than 24 that have been on this team for a while, like a Ben Mathurin.
Yeah.
or an Andrew Nemhard, like when you taste the NBA Finals and you taste what it feels like to get there, and then you're having these kind of struggles, it is probably very easy to flip the switch, say, we don't have it this year. This is just a paycheck. I'm coming out here just to do my job, move on to the next game, win or lose, it doesn't matter to me. And I'm not saying that they're all at that point, but it would not surprise me if there was something mentally that was kind of a mental block saying, like, I'm trying to come out here and win, obviously, but if we don't, I'm not losing sleep over it, or I'm not like, I'm not as laser focused as I was during this playoff run where like every game mattered because they just all run together. It's a long season.
Except I actually have been drawing a lot of parallels between that and the multiple game 4 losses in the playoffs. When you're up 3-1 and sorry, there's nothing you can do to make them believe that when you're up 3-1, it's a must-win game.
Yeah.
And what did they keep doing? They kept getting lax. They kept losing those game 4s when they were up 3-1, those couple times that it happened.
Well, I think you're talking more like game 3s they would lose because they would be up 2-0, right? Because if you're 3-1, it's already 4 games, right?
Yeah.
But I get what your point, right? Because they were up 2-0 against the Bucks, they were up 2-0 against the Cavs, and they were up 2-0 against the Knicks, and they let all those games. Now, the Thunder game, I think maybe is what you're referencing here with game 4 when you're up 2-1.
There's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Been a lot of numbers.
They lost almost every game 3, at least in the Eastern Conference playoffs. They lost every game 3 after being up 2-0.
Yeah.
So, and 2 of those, well, yeah, because they lost game 3 at home to the Knicks, and they lost game 3 at home to the Cavs, and they should have won both those games, really. I mean, I think the Cavs blew them out in game 3, so that was kind of a weird anomaly, but the Knicks game, they were up in that one. In the fourth quarter, Karl Towns went off, and then in Milwaukee, that's when, Gary Trent Jr. dropped 37 points on him, right? So you're right, though. It's one of those mental things like, we already got our 2, we just got to win 1, and we can come back home and finish it or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't have that mindset, and that's a sign of a young team that needs to get better.
And that's this whole season now.
Yeah, but it's even worse. It's way worse because, honestly, you win that first game on the road in a playoff series, game 2, if you win that one, like, that is like, oh my God, we are good. We are set. A lot of times you see game 2s come up in a loss after you win a game 1 on the road. But yeah, overall, I would just say, like, your Pascal Siakam's, like, when he comes to the podium and says that guys just got to, like, these losses have to sit a little bit longer and they have to mean something, when he says something along those lines, I don't think he's saying it for naught. I think he's saying it for some reason, right?
And for somebody.
Yes, and I don't think Carlisle comes up to the podium and says petty nonsense, not talking about somebody specifically, or at least referencing a couple of players that are having the same issues. But at the same time, you don't have to play those guys. You're the coach.
Yeah.
And if you're starting guard or you're starting wing or you're starting center, whoever is not playing to the standards you want them to play, you have enough guys. I mean, the guys are getting healthy enough now. You might not win the game, but hey, if you got a guard that's not playing, well, I'm sure Quentin Jackson or Cam Jones is going to come in there and play hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so we're just now getting to a point where being able to sit guys is a luxury that we finally have.
True.
It was to the point up until merely a few games ago, you had 6 guys on the injury report, right? And so it's like, well, if Mathurin isn't playing well and I bench Mathurin, that means I bench him to be probably only 20 minutes a night off the bench because I don't have any other horses to run this race. Yeah. So I would be interested to see if, the coaching staff gets judicious about playing time. And again, it's a balance that they have to draw between being judicious enough to make everybody more motivated and understand that there are consequences without fracturing relationships and without fracturing the bond that all of these guys do share. It's another one of those balancing acts that, it's very easy for us sitting here to say, bench him. It's very easy for the 2 of us sitting here to say, what would be cool is if because the Pacers at the end of that game when they were being blown out against the Rockets, the C squad made a run at the end of that game, and they showed the kind of fight that we need. Why don't you just start them the next game to prove a point? Because that's something you don't do.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for us to say, that is something that should happen logistically, logically. I think that there's a very good chance that we're right and that we're making the winning arguments. It's just one of those we don't have to look him in the eye, when we tell him, that they're sitting. It's one of those, I am really glad that I don't have to make those decisions
Right.
and that I don't spend hours and hours on the plane with these guys and that I don't spend all of the bus rides and all of the times that we don't see building very human bonds with these guys just to say, "Hey, you're kind of sucking right now. I know that we're paying you this big contract, but I'm not going to play you because I'm very disappointed in you."
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
just
it
it's
it comes
impossible.
down it comes down to relationship, money, morale. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, emotions and things like
Yeah.
that. But some guys kind of get it. Some guys kind of know their role is going to be a starter, and when you're told that, and then all of a sudden you get your job taken from you, and you're not playing because they don't like the way you're playing, like it's a big deal. And like I think like for a guy like Mathurin specifically, like knowing he's going into restricted free agency, you're messing with a guy's future money potentially if you start doing that
Mhm.
kind of stuff, which is going to cause an uproar within the the locker room. It's going to cause issues. I mean, we didn't
With
hear
his
about it.
management.
Right. Well,
I mean,
yes, because they're going to complain about stuff saying like, really, you're playing a two-way guy over my guy that's trying to get paid.
yeah,
Like, what are we doing? And that's when like the business side of things comes in and again get kind of ugly. And it's all honestly what kind of happened with Buddy Hield. If you go back just a couple of years ago, Buddy Hield was in a contract year and basically wanted to be traded because
yeah,
they were like, we're starting Nemhard over you. We're going back to that because it works better for our team, and he didn't like it. So it was one of those things. He thought he should be a starter. He didn't think he should be coming off the bench, and felt like his value was getting, plummeted, or it was plummeting, or it was getting tanked because he wasn't getting the opportunity he previously had been getting. And so that's when they traded him to Philadelphia. I think that they probably could have worked it out if they just kept him on the roster, but he was a headache and he was a defensive liability. So I think they were just like, you know what, we're not gonna put up with this. We're gonna trade you and move forward and things like that. So
mm,
yeah, I mean, and I like Buddy Hield. I don't think anybody has any ill will towards Buddy Hield. And I don't think it was personal between
yeah,
Buddy Hield and Andrew Nemhard. I think it was personal between Buddy Hield and the front office. I don't even know if it was a coaching thing in Buddy Hield either, but maybe it was a little bit, but they had to do what was best for the team, and Buddy Hield felt like that was kind of cutting into his opportunity. So
yeah,
there's always going to be things like that happen, and there's always going to be situations like that. It's just how do you manage them? And the Pacers did what they thought was best. They traded him. They got McDermott, and McDermott was more of a backup shooter and made sense for them for what they wanted to do. But
yeah,
yeah, it's going to be an interesting final 48 games of the year, that is for sure. And to see how the Pacers approach it and how they respond to some hard coaching like we saw from Carlisle on Wednesday night, or was it Wednesday night? Yeah, it was Wednesday night
yeah.
after
Wednesday afternoon, as it were.
afternoon. Yeah, all my days are thrown off. We're recording this now. I can't believe I have to go to work tomorrow. It feels like it should be a Saturday just because you just have a
Yeah,
random day off. But
weird.
yeah. Anyway, this is a great conversation. I'm glad we were able to do this Christmas, or excuse me, New Year's wish list for the Pacers. So just quickly go 1 through 5 one more time, what the headlines were without getting onto all the details.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thought I was done with this list, so I closed it. So, first things first, it was health.
Oh,
Secondly, it was a starting center. Third, it was lottery luck. Fourth, it was the return of the Pacers' way. And finally, at number 5, any and all answers finally.
okay. That is the list. That is Casey Johnson. You can find him on Twitter at Casey on the drums. And I know you said you are playing for your band that's getting some great opportunities here.
Yes.
We have we announced those officially yet? Or are they
We
still
have not, but
okay?
everything is tracking to where it is going to be a real thing enough to where we can announce it fairly soon. We're at a point where it's in funding stages and it's sort of taking on a life of its own and getting some traction. So hopefully, we were hoping to be able to announce it by the new year. So not quite yet, but hopefully by the next time I'm on, we'll be able to say something about it.
Perfect. And one more time, remind me of the name of your band.
Night Owl Country Band.
Night Owl Country Band. I knew it was Night Owl, but I forgot what their last two parts of that was. I was like,
right.
So it's a night. I was just thinking the Night Owls, and I was like, I think there's more to it. So
yeah. And ironically, it's the layup of two words. It's just a country band, and it's Night Owl Country Band. It's like
Night Owl Country Band,
basketball player.
Exactly. So the NOCB is what you guys your acronym is. So that's pretty cool. And this is Setting the Pace, aka STP. So thank God it's not STD, right? So just
Word.
STP. We had to make sure we came up with the right acronym. So anyway, Pacer Nation, we appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back. I'll probably be doing a solo show, or maybe I'll have another guest to talk about the Pacers versus Spurs game. But Fachi and I will also be back every single day this month with our Center of Attention mini podcast series, where you can find on this feed. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I will say for the YouTube watchers that the mini series is audio only. So if you guys want to hear it, you have to go to the audio platforms that we have on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, instead of watching them on YouTube. So this will be on YouTube, and we want to thank you all so much for tuning in. But until next time, Pacer Nation, peace out. Casey, thanks again, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. We'll see.
See you, Pacer Nation.